Hello, welcome back to Benasushi Live Coding. In this episode, we're gonna learn a little bit about logic using a list of Boolean. Basically, the idea is to be able to trigger bunch of object states simply by triggering the true or false. In this case, for example, you have like 5 values and all of them currently is set to false. And let's say you have like a bunch of object that's actually like a rigid body dynamic, and you kind of want to turn it on one by one, and I want to kind of do that using animation nodes. So let's say we have this floor, and the floor is set to a collision, or actually this guy should be maybe a rigid body passive, and this guy should be rigid body active, and then by default it's gonna fall. So the idea is to have these 5 objects and let them fall one by one depending on this true or false logic. So here I have the setup already. There are actually many ways to do this. You can even use the animation nodes offset. Let's say you have like a value and you kind of want to switch them one by one, and you can use the fall off and the offset together. That's probably something that I will do in the next video. For this one, I will be using this just Boolean logic. So I started with this integer range, basically 5 number. I can set it up, you know, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, just 5 numbers starting from 0. And because we have 5 objects here, and then if we have these numbers and we compare it with something like a frame number that's kind of going up, we can ask animation nodes, okay, can you compare this bunch of numbers with a frame? And if the frame goes up, as the frame goes up, it will switch the logic and kind of switch from false to true, which means we can trigger this rigid body dynamic this way. So this is one way to do it. Of course, like I said, you can use fall off and offset. Maybe that's for the next one. In this case, I will just plug this guy in there, frame number. Here I'm actually using a loop because this compare nodes doesn't work with a multiple value yet. So that's why I'm using this loop. And what else? Maybe I can increase the step. So the durations of the trigger is like maybe every 10 frames. Okay, now I have this Boolean that I can use. Perhaps we can trigger this physics body that way. So let's have a look. This physics body, rigid body dynamics is controlled by this guy, on and off switch. bpy.context object rigid body. So this guy, we can simply use loop and object attribute output to control the rigid body. It's actually rather simple, but sometimes not always very clear. So this is the parameter or the attributes that we want to control, and we want to bring our 5 objects, excluding the floor. So I'm gonna group this again. I'm gonna use objects from group and get our group. So rigid body world contains every objects that's in rigid body. Group is only like our 5 cube. So this guy goes in here. We'd say, okay, multiple values, and the trigger will be our Boolean list. It says attribute not found. Interesting. Probably I don't need this object at the front. There you go. So the trigger should be Now you can see these 5 objects triggering one by one, dependent on this false and true. So yeah, even though this is like super basics, I'm not a person from programming background, and for me this kind of thing is very valuable. I wish that someone explained this to me like a couple of years ago, and now with this kind of clear, you can basically trigger any kind of like situations, or like a switch, or like a status, or whatever, simply by using the Boolean. You can have like 50 objects or 100 objects, and you can trigger it this way. So that's pretty much it for this live noding. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.